You need to show up when it's one person, and you need to deliver an A-plus tour.
If you don't show up for the one person the same way that you show up for the 100, you're not going to probably survive. I really want this to be the best it can be for you.
It's not too difficult to make this a little bit more clear. We're going to make sure that they get the best experience, even if it's not with us.
So I tell my team that, let us not forget it's an honor and a privilege to get to do what we get to do for people. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Reinventing Beauty podcast. Today, we're going to continue the conversation on hospitality, creating great guest experiences, and how that all translates into things that salon owners and managers can use to help make an amazing experience for their team.
So today we are joined with a friend of ours and one of the best tour guides I have ever seen, and his name is Jon Noto.
What's up, everybody?
Jon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Jon. I've been a tour guide in New York City for the past 10 years, and it's really within the last year that I started my own company, a company called City Shuffles. And basically, we're trying to revitalize the tourism industry, which I think is still, I'm not going to say reeling, but still responding to everything with the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown and everything like that. And we're trying to breathe a little bit more life into it with a higher quality experience and with improving the connection between the tourist and the city.
So Jon, our podcast is geared towards salon owners and managers and people that have opened their own businesses. What has inspired you, or what made you go out on your own and create your own thing?
Well, it's funny because when I started this job, my whole idea was, I'm an actor in New York City and I just need a side gig that gets me from week to week as I'm waiting for the next acting job to come in. I didn't expect I was going to love it so much and feel a great passion for it. So when I started this, I worked for basically one company pretty early on, and that got me all the work I really needed to support myself and feel a sense of reward working in this industry. Now, after the lockdown, we were considered non-essential during that time period. And just to be frank, it sucked.
It did.
It really sucked to work in the service industry during that time, or the hospitality industry. And I decided, okay, I got to be a little bit more aggressive in this industry. And I applied for way more companies. And so there was a period of like 2 years where I was working for, I get like 5 or 6 different companies at the same time, and they weren't too much different. A lot of them let you do your own thing. So if you have a Grand Central tour with this company and a Grand Central tour with that company, it's not too different. Maybe the starting location is different, but like just managing it all. This one sends you all of your dates over a Google app. This one doesn't send it to you via Gmail, and just managing all of that, trading shifts. This company, you have to trade them directly. This company, you have to tell them. This one, you do it electronically.
Crazy. So yeah, hard to manage.
You get it. It was so difficult to manage all of this stuff. And I still felt that the work that I was getting just wasn't really enough compared to what I used to get. So I said, something, let me bite the bullet. Let me try this. Let me register an LLC. What does LLC stand for? That's like the next step is I don't know anything about starting a business. So I did my research, got started on stuff, and just started posting on all these different platforms. And, in New York City, just starting like a tourism company is so challenging because you will have a period of 6 months where you have these public tours on the schedule and one person is booked, and you could be, selfish about that. You can contact these people and say, I have to cancel. It's not enough people. I think that basically means that you don't really want this that badly.
Right.
You need to show up when it's one person, and you need to deliver an A-plus tour. And then you also have to read the room, because the way that you do a tour with an audience of 30 people is not the way you do a tour with an audience of one person. If you maintain that 30-person energy, you're actually intimidating, the person that you're giving a tour to. So reading the room, bringing your A game and being happy to be there, no matter how many people are on the tour, is kind of the trick to bringing quality.
I mean, that statement alone is so gold for a stylist. You know, when they're starting out in the hair industry, a stylist may only have one appointment that week. And it's so hard for them to want to show up for that one appointment.
Yeah.
Or if it's that day and maybe they have a 9 o'clock appointment and then they have nobody until 5, to actually stick around and put the time in and show up as their best self, that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Now, I think when you make a choice or a decision to go out on your own, that's going to define whether or not you're going to make it. You know, in any industry, doesn't really matter the industry, if you can't show up for the one person the same way that you show up for the 100, yeah, you're not going to probably survive. So that's pretty cool.
So when you decided to go out on your own and you had worked for all these other companies, what was your goal as starting up your own? What were you going to do different than the rest?
What I really wanted to do different from the rest is the contact before the tour. And we have a business number that is designed for texting, and we want you to text us with all of your questions, anything you're looking for. And we want to give you that promise that was made in the Miracle on 34th Street movie. If you remember, you know, we don't have what they're looking for, we're going to send them right over to Bloomingdale's. Bloomingdale says, if we don't have it, we're going to send them right back to Macy's. We're going to make sure that they get the best experience, even if it's not with us. And because I had worked for all these companies, and I knew that a lot of these companies were great, I didn't really have a problem saying, you know something, we're not offering a subway tour, but this other great company, Untapped, offers it at these hours, and I can get you in touch with them. And we're just going to send them that way. We're not going to charge like a service fee. We're not going to say to somebody like, oh, you have to give us a cut because we recommended somebody. We're just going to send you to who we know is the best for this. And we contact you ahead of the tour. We can learn about your special accommodations. An example, just earlier this week, I had a guest who really wanted to take the Brooklyn Bridge tour, and the gentleman in question was wheelchair bound. And we were in touch beforehand, and I knew that the only thing we have to do is we have to do the exit on Tillery Street instead of that early staircase, because it was just not going to be possible for him in his situation to do the staircase. And so, okay, that means we're going to go up there. So I'm going to cut a few of the buildings that I do in Lower Manhattan at the start of the tour to make up for the time. And then I'm going to include a bunch of those courthouses that are in that section of Brooklyn Heights as we make our way over to the restroom that would typically be right after the staircase. And so by doing that, it didn't really affect the tour too much. It didn't affect the other people on the tour too much. And I framed the whole thing, you know, for the group. I really want to cover all these courthouses that I don't get to see too often in Brooklyn, and people were excited to be a part of it. And so that's an example of us reaching out to the customer beforehand and trying to incorporate their needs. And that's a public tour only. You know, people will say, we would love to take your food tour, but we don't have the time to do it. Could you tell us like what's on the food tour? And I'll tell them like what to get and what else is in the area. I'll tell them about all the great restaurants I know about. And it's great because I'm also supporting people who are friends of mine, all the restaurant owners.
Yeah, that's amazing. I heard a couple really important things. One, you plan and prepare before you actually show up with that guest. So we talk to our team about that all the time. If you don't plan your day, if you don't think about your client before they sit down in your chair, what are you really bringing them? Are you bringing them the best possible experience? So by doing that, you knew, hey, okay, we need to make some accommodations. But the second part of what I heard and what I love that you said was you didn't make them feel like they were missing anything or you had to change something because of this accommodation with the wheelchair. You presented it in a way that it was like, hey, I'm going to include something extra and unique just for you. So curating an experience that was just for them, potentially you'll use it again. But for the consumer, for your guests, that was very hospitable to say, yeah, we're going to do this way and not really let them know that they were missing anything because there was this special accommodation that was needed. So it's really being unique to each individual and looking at them in a way that says, I really want this to be the best it can be for you. And we love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, now that you've shared with me or with us a few ways that you show hospitality through your work, what does hospitality mean to you?
To me, hospitality means actually care from a place that comes outside of just, the financial aspect of all of this. And it also means read the room. Read the room is something that, I feel like I'm going to keep coming back to as we continue this conversation. So a great example of the tour we just talked about, the Brooklyn Bridge tour, there's a lot of sights that we see from the Brooklyn Bridge. And as I'm standing up there, I'm pointing stuff out, making sure that people can see it. What I notice is sometimes I'll have somebody on the tour and they're 5'2" or they're 5'3" or something. And I want to try and make sure that they can get around that person who's 6'5", who will, not really thinking about it, stand right in front of them, and then make sure that I'm also not calling them out or like embarrassing them. And then on top of that, I also like to, when I'm pointing out things off in the distance, I get down on one knee and I hold up the microphone so that I am not physically blocking what it is that they need to see. And I don't say that I'm doing it or why I'm doing it. I just do it. And there might be somebody there, who's like, a really tall guy or a tall girl or something. Like, why do you get down on one knee? All right, whatever. There's the Empire State Building. I'm looking at it. I don't know why he's on one knee though. And they're not going to think about that too long. Well, you know what? There's actually somebody there who has had this experience before where they can't see something because somebody taller than them is in the way. And on a subconscious level, they actually really appreciate that you did that and that you just did it without making a big fuss out of it. And they probably will forget that you did that over the course of the 3-hour tour, but it's just something that on a subconscious level makes them appreciate they feel more appreciated.
Yeah.
By the end of the tour.
I actually forgot that you did that, but the minute you said it, I was like, oh, I remember you doing that on our tour.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, and you took 9/11.
Yeah, we took 9/11 twice with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember now.
It was so good the first time we had to go back.
That's right.
We brought
And you brought some
back.
friends
Yeah,
the second time.
Firemen.
I think the first time you took it with me with a company that I worked for.
Yes.
And then the second time around, you guys actually
We took
just
it. Yep. Independent.
That's right.
your
That's
company.
right. And then you sent who was it that got married? Was it your niece that got married?
Yeah, my niece and her
Gotcha.
husband. Yeah, and you took them around
That's
a
right.
couple times, so that was great.
We did Midtown Manhattan. We did 9/11, and they were fantastic.
They said, one of the things that they said to us about their time with you was, and I thought this was really interesting, and I don't know that I've ever experienced this on this level, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool thing, and it's something you could probably use to promote your business. But my niece said to me, he made us not feel like a tourist. And being in New York, it's overwhelming, and we felt like a tourist everywhere we went, except for when we were with him. Then there was just, I thought it was actually really like profound. When she said it, I was like, oh, I've never really thought about that. I do know what it feels like to feel like a tourist, and that doesn't typically feel comfortable or good. And so there was a level of what they experienced with you that made their trip so much more enjoyable because they didn't have that feeling or the nervousness of not knowing what was going to happen next, or where they were headed or if they were going to get lost or whatever. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, John, in our industry, the professionals in the beauty industry, we suffer burnout. We get tired of doing the same things over and over and over again, and it takes a lot for us to stay inspired. Do you experience that in yours? And if you do, what do you do to keep yourself inspired?
So specifically for the tourism industry, one great thing, like running walking tours especially, know a whole bunch of routes. And if you want to get extra good, know alternate routes within that. So one day I'm doing Soho, another day I'm doing the 9/11 Memorial, then Central Park, then Brooklyn Bridge. That helps a lot, that these places are completely different of one another. And at the end of the day, there's going to be some stories that you tell every time you do that particular tour. You want to keep it natural, but you do want to adhere to your way of doing it because you really want to get to your point with every sentence because you want to cover a lot of material. So it does become scripted in a way, but then you want to throw yourself a curveball. You go down Green Street all the time in Soho, Okay, well, let's go down Mercer Street this time and just talk about that stuff. And because I haven't covered Mercer Street in so long, the couple of seconds it takes me to remember something brings out new qualities. One thing that I can talk about with buildings is I can talk about their architectural style, but I've actually noticed, as much as I love the topic, it's a snooze fest for a lot of the guests. No, like really, like when I told them this is Art Deco, this is Neo-Gothic, this is Neoclassical, I see it, they start yawning and I'm like,
It's glazed over.
Yeah. So I just say, I cover it once and I just like tell them, hey, you know what, guys? I know it's with architecture, it's a little bit of a snooze fest for some people. If you're ever curious about a building's architectural style, all you have to do is ask. But if you never ask me ever again, you're never going to hear about it ever again. It gets a good laugh out of the guests, and sometimes they will throw you that curveball. John, what architectural style is that one? And then boom, I'm talking about this building that I know about, but I haven't covered it in so long. And that little improvisation that I'm forced into really steps me out of the script that you have to fall into a little bit, but you want to avoid completely falling into. Now, I just want to circle back to burnout. It's another gift in this industry, or maybe it's my way of doing it. I've spoken with another tour guide that I work with. He works for my company as well. Very accomplished actor, a guy named John Gallagher. And he put it the best. You can have a day where you're feeling like, like you don't have it in you anymore. And then the moment the tour starts, huzzah. Like it's just back.
You turn it on.
Back. And like you can do it. And it's amazing how this actual job turns off my burnout. I think about all the tours I've run over the past few years. I thought about this question coming here. The only time I can think of where I was actually experiencing burnout on the tour is this one day where I had food poisoning and I still had to show up and give the tour. And that was the only time I can think of where I was experiencing it on the tour. So freshen things up, find new ways of doing things. I'm not too experienced with like running a salon or that sort of thing. I guess the idea is, if you start cutting the left side of the hair, start cutting on the right side or something.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Throw yourself a curveball.
I love that.
We say it all the time in the salon. It's like if you are bored of doing, whatever client, they're probably bored of their hair. And if they're bored of their hair, they're going to go look somewhere else. So keep your job interesting by keeping them interested.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting about even just looking at the architecture of a building and reading the room. We do that a lot when we're teaching. You look around and you're like, okay, we're losing them. And I thought it was a really interesting or notable thing to think about using humor as a way to bring them back in. Because if you can regain their attention, sometimes they do think, oh, well, that is kind of interesting. I'd kind of like to know. But you've also given them the out as well. You're like, I don't want to bore you. This is your time. We say that often when we teach. We're like, hey, you're the one that gave up your day to be here. We're working today, but you gave up your day to be here. We want this to be the best it can be for you, which goes right back to how you plan to make sure their tour is the best for them. So having those systems in place are so important. So do you find it difficult, or can you give us some pointers on how you maintain your level of hospitality if potentially you have somebody in your group who's either difficult or unhappy with what's happening?
Yeah, I change my tone when I see that. And again, there's a difference between how you handle a private tour and a public tour. If somebody hires you for a private tour and like the group is not appreciating it, it's that's a little bit of a challenge. But usually the people that request a private tour, and unless if it's one of those things where they booked it through a third party and there's just zero communication beforehand, and it's like they'll show up and I'll be like, wait, do any of you speak English? How did you end up on a tour with me?
Right.
It's like, why are we doing this to each other right now? A great example, is you're given the tour, the family's having a good time, and the teenage daughter, it's like, it helps to really, really know your stuff. And I remember I had one time, I had that the family was having a good time,
teenage daughter was just in her phone, and that's not against you. She's just a teenage daughter,
Right.
That sort of stuff. Well,
I was like, we've experienced that with our kids on a tour, so it's like, okay.
and it's no big deal. It's not like the teenage daughter is going to complain. She's actually probably amongst the happier people because she's looking at her phone, and it's the teenage son sometimes too. But I remember one time this happened on the East Village food tour, and I just took a little risk. I took them just a little bit out of the way that I normally go to. And there was this, it was actually, I call it a bodega. It was actually an illegal marijuana dispensary. Not to use that stuff, but I knew that this dispensary had 6 newborn kittens inside.
Crazy.
And, this is a risk because some people hate cats, but I just knocked on the door. I just said, like, can we see the kitty cats? And they brought them out, and everybody was just having like such a wonderful time. And this little girl like put down her phone. She had one sitting in her lap, and I remember she just looked up at her mom and just said, "I want to get a cat." And like all of a sudden,
Her
there
mom
was
loved you for that.
a whole new quality. And you can write it off as like, why is she like that? It's so insulting. I'm looking at this crowd of people, and I just have this one person staring at their phone. It's like, How do I reach that one person while, not losing the rest of them? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's, just change your tone, say it a little bit differently. If you're speaking to a crowd of 30, try changing your tone, get to a quieter part of the city and talk as if you're talking to one person. And if you're in a quieter part of the city, you can pull that off. You don't have to use your public speaking voice. You use, the voice I'm using right now. And if you're in a quieter part of the city, people they'll come a little bit closer to you. It can work, and maybe that will wake them up. Maybe my theatrical style, I talk like this, so that way 30 people can hear me and understand me right now. Right. Well, now I'll just talk like this instead. And they'll look up, and they'll see you. This is the kind of person that they needed.
Yeah, so making that pivot in the experience, just changing something to try and draw them in. We say all the time, it's for us really important to try and remember, one, it's not about us, like to not take it personally. It could just be something that's going on in their life at that point. And to try and meet people where they are. We'll have oftentimes salon owners that sit in classes or experiences that we're doing, and maybe who knows, maybe their salon's flooding at home or whatever it is, or they had an employee. We just had it at the last one, and we had another woman in our group where she just had somebody quit. She's here in New York on a trip having this experience, and then has a stylist quit at home. So sometimes it really doesn't have anything to do with you, but I really love that just changing what the norm is to maybe grab their attention is a really cool way. I mean, I feel like we could definitely benefit from utilizing that. So it's cool. Thank you. So Jon, if you could give one piece of advice to anybody who's trying to elevate their customer or guest experience, what would that be?
I would say right now, ask yourself the question, do you love this? Do you love what you're doing? Are you in this because you really enjoy doing it? Finance matters, Of course, you're doing this to pay the bills, to live a good, comfortable life. But how much do you really love this? And I think if you love it, you're going to find ways to continuously innovate in whatever industry you're in. And a great way to innovate is to put yourself through the customer experience. Yeah. And it's true. Go to somebody else's salon. It's not really about stealing their ideas, but just noticing how you felt. There's a great restaurant in my neighborhood. It's fantastic. And they're really bad at communication over there. The food is great, but they're really bad at communication. I never forget, like one time there was a little bit of a wait, and I just came up and I was like, okay, so are you going to, give us one of those buzzer machines? Do you text us when it's our turn? Is it going to be 10 minutes or is it going to be 40 minutes? And the guy just kind of looked at me and like pointed at this little book, and apparently we're supposed to like sign in. And it's like, okay, well that was a little bit condescending. Right. And like, do the people that run this place know it's not too difficult to make this a little bit more clear? Maybe you're so overstaffed you can't have a host explaining this to us right now,
but like you don't even have a sign up, and we weren't the only people asking this question. You're lucky your food is so darn good.
Right. Right. We say that all the time. It's like, oh, for sure, restaurants are always a way that we gauge guest experience, you know?
So going through that personal experience, you know, if I was running a restaurant, I could actually like say to myself like, how does it feel when we're waiting to be seated? How do we handle that with our restaurant right now? So for me, a great idea is go take somebody else's tour just to see what that experience was with all these different little moments. Notice, oh my gosh, like when he talked about that building, he told me, okay, look at that business over there. Now look at the window above it. Now look just to the left of that window. Do you see that head, that statuesque head on the building? That head represents Africa. And I said, oh my gosh. He told me, he pointed out a really clear object, then he pointed out a clear object above it, and then he pointed out the statue on the side of the building. This whole time I've just been pointing out the statue. I just realized now there's all these people who might not know what I'm talking about, and they don't want to feel stupid. They don't say, wait, where's the statue? He guided us to that object. Oh my gosh, that's what I should be doing. I need to really draw their line of sight much more clearly by pointing out the most identifiable object before leading them to the more specific thing. And when you take somebody else's tour, you'll notice that, or you'll notice the lack of that.
Right.
So how do you continuously improve the customer experience? If you really love this, you'll do this thing that you love. Go to other people's businesses, not to steal their ideas, but to actually see what it feels like to be in the customer's shoes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's like two really important things. One, you have to be passionate about it. Now, do I think it's easy to stay passionate all the time? No. I mean, we talk to our staff about that constantly, ways to reconnect. And if you're not feeling the passion, I think a really great way to probably reignite is to do exactly what you just said. And the other thing we say to them is always be a student. So maybe be the client. Be the person and go experience it. I just did that. So I went to another salon to have a service done. And it was so interesting to me how not only there were a few things that I was like, oh, I love that. I think we could incorporate that. That would be great. There were things that I didn't love. And there were things that made me really appreciate what my team does. And so those kinds of things can help really reignite your passion. I love that. And I love your attention to all of their detail. That then, I mean, you really are, when you were saying that about pointing to the object and then pointing to the object above it and the one next to it, like you're truly being a student in that scenario. And I think if you go through life constantly being a student, you have nowhere to go but up and to be happier. So
John, if somebody is coming to New York and they want to take a tour, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, the easiest way would be to go to cityshuffles.com, CITYSHUFFLES.com. We also own the domain 911memorialtours.com, and you'll be able to book us through there as well if that's the one that you end up recalling. And there you'll find a whole fleet of public tours that we have available. Some of them are actually currently, I don't know if you're listening to this podcast 5 years from now or currently.
hopefully,
But
currently and 5 years from now.
But if you're listening to it as it comes out, some of our tours are listed at a pay what you wish price right now, which means there's a $5 booking fee. And then at the end of the tour, you pay whatever you want, whatever you think the tour was worth per person. And we're running a good number of them at this promotional cost right now. So it's a wonderful time to book our tours. And we also have private tours on there. And of course, we also have our email address and more specifically, our company number, which we encourage you to text. We encourage you to text us on WhatsApp or text us on that number with any questions you have about the city. So you can tell us, we plan to go to Harlem. Where's the best place for chicken and waffles? It's obviously Sylvia's. If you're, we're going to Greenwich Village. If the Comedy Cellar is sold out, what's the best way to get in? You can ask us pizza recommendations in different neighborhoods, and we're happy to just start a conversation with you and even go as far as helping you plan your entire itinerary. And again, we're going to mention our tours. You know, if you ask about Greenwich Village, we have a Greenwich Village food tour. We're going to mention that to you, but maybe the day that you want to take it, it's not a day that we offer it. Well, we'll tell you who the best of our competition is. We'll make sure that you can get the best of everything. So please send us a text. Any questions you have about anything involving New York City, we're here to help out.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I think that leads us really into our last question, and I feel like I know the answer, but I'm anxious to see what you say. So we end every podcast with the same question.
Okay.
And we would just like to know, what do you do to leave your industry better than you found it?
I guess it's something that I try to bring throughout all of it. We want to deliver the best experience possible. And the way that I train my guides is to make sure to do that extra thing that a lot of companies are skipping. So some companies, they do the bus tour and they stop you right at the corner of Fifth Avenue to see the Empire State Building. And we know for a fact, no. You don't look at it from Fifth Avenue. You look at it next to Macy's from 6th Avenue, and that's where you can see the whole building. But it's so much easier to just get them out at 5th Avenue and not go that extra block. Well, I teach them, listen, go that extra block. Go that extra block and insist upon it if it makes sense for that tour. Go that extra block so that way they can see that extra good view, and try to make it so that's the view that they see first, because you're giving them the Empire State Building. You're giving them, essentially America's equivalent of the pyramids, and some people are seeing it for the first time. So this is really the thing. You are showing someone the Empire State Building, one of our greatest works of art as Americans. Somebody in your tour is seeing that for the first time in their life. So be proud of the fact that you get to give that to them. Really, really appreciate that for yourself, that you have the honor of showing them this incredible work of art, this incredible piece of American craftsmanship. Feel great about that and let that energize you as a tour guide. Look forward to that moment every time, because whereas you see it 100 times a week working this job, it's a new experience every time if you appreciate that this person is seeing it for the first time. So feel that, appreciate that, love that.
That's amazing. That translates very well.
Yeah.
We talk about that in our morning message every day to our team, that it's you said it's an honor. And so I tell my team that, let us not forget it's an honor and a privilege to get to do what we get to do for people. So thank you so much. What an honor it is to sit with you and have this conversation.
Thank you.
Very fun.